Hello again, my friends. So I decided that I know I was kind of not sure what I was going to talk about today. Like last time I said maybe I'd talk about a video game. There's a video game I do want to talk about that I just started playing again. It's a remaster, but one of my favorites of all time. However, I decided that today we would talk about The Bad Batch. The Bad Batch is my favorite Star Wars show, actually. Well, I guess I could say my favorite animated Star Wars show, but actually, I think it just might be my favorite Star Wars show. So, if you don't know The Bad Batch, please go watch it. It's on Disney Plus. But The Bad Batch focuses on Clone Force 99. And Clone Force 99 were specific clones made with specific, like, um, what's the word I'm trying to like strengths, I guess is the best way to put it, right? Specific abilities, right? So one of them is super, super intelligent. One of them is super, super strong. One of them is Hunter. Hunter with his uh, special, like, kind of echolocation abilities. He can track people really easily, though it's not really showcased very well. I wish they did a better job with Hunter. And then one of them is like a perfect sharpshooter. He's perfect aim. Um, and I think, well, then there's, well, okay, we'll get into it. So, those four, there's actually five, but that, well, there's Echo too. Echo doesn't really, I mean, he is part of the Bad Batch. He's part of the squad, but technically that's not where he started. He was initiated into the Bad Batch after a series of unfortunate events. Let's put it that way. But we love Echo. Love him. Great. He's like that grumpy dad the whole time. Like, I love to see him, you know? Um, but then there's also Omega, and Omega is a clone as well. She's a girl, and she um they don't know about her. I guess so. She's the kind of clone that was made like not Django. Django is the guy who gave his DNA. No, like Boba Fett, where uh Omega is allowed to grow up like a child, like Boba Fett did, right? Because Boba Fett is also a clone, but they gave him to Django. I don't remember why that happened, but anyway, as a kid, and he was allowed to grow up like a kid. So however they managed to like decelerate the growth process, Omega is like that. So she's a little kid, whereas Hunter and Wrecker and Tech and Crosshair, I have to say it in a New Zealand accent. I can't help it. I am part New Zealander, so it's okay. But they all had the accelerated growth, obviously. So they're grown. They're all grown. Um, anyway, that's besides the point. So what is the Bad Batch about? The Bad Batch starts off right near the end of the war of the Republic, right? So the war against the Confederate, the droids, and the Confederation. Is that what it is called? Oh my gosh, the Confederacy. I mean, it's the that's what they're anyway. That's what they're called. And I have watched this show and many Star Wars things, I promise. But it's just things don't stick in my brain super well if I'm not thinking about them all the time. But anyway, so the droids versus the clones, right? The Clone Wars. Okay, there's a whole show on that too. And in fact, there's a whole season, I think it's season 7, that features the Bad Batch. That's the first time they showed up to my knowledge. They might have shown up in something else before then, like a book or something, but I wouldn't know about that. I haven't read many of the books, but that season is absolutely fantastic. So if you haven't guessed, Wrecker, super strong boy. Hunter, he's a hunter. He can find anybody, kind of, question mark. Tech, extremely intelligent. And Crosshair, he's the sharpshooter. And then we have Echo, and Echo was actually from the 501st, I believe. But he ended up getting they thought he was dead, but he actually got kidnapped by the Confederates, and he was put in Skako Minor, which is the planet, and he was like attached to a machine, and that's how they found him because he was like emitting some sort of wave to the radios, and they were able to find him and come find him, pull him out of there. But he was like a shell of a person, okay, and anyway, this is from the Clone Wars show. So I'm just giving you the background for why Echo is a part of their team. And So he's like a hot mess. He has to have a lot of surgeries to fix himself, and he's got like a I actually have a he's way over there though. I have a action figure of Echo, Tech, and Wrecker and Omega, but they're over there, so they're gonna stay over there. But he has a scomp uh, that allows him to like dial in, kind of like how R2D2. He has a little scomp that lets him like go into and like get information. He has that same little scomp link thing, and he can also put like other things on his arm. So he's got a bionic arm. That's the easiest way to put it. He's got a bionic arm. He's got like a bionic head. He's got like he's got a lot going on. Okay, poor guy. He was a hot mess. But when he came out of that, he's like, wow, I feel like I don't really fit in with the guys anymore. And then the Bad Batch were like, hey, you should join us because we're weirdos. And yeah, we accept all weirdos. um, but anyway, so that's what happens in the Clone Wars. We start out in the Bad Batch at the end of the Republic, okay, at the war, and they're shooting the Jedi. They get that what's it called, Order 66, and now they used to back in like the olden days. It used to be just an order that they followed, but now it's like something that was implanted in their head to do. So the clones were just because they had to, but Clone Force 99, aka the Bad Batch, they aren't normal. They don't function normally like the other clones do, and for whatever reason, the chip in their head that was supposed to make them follow orders for Order 66 didn't work for them, except for Crosshair, kind of. But Crosshair, you know, Crosshair. We'll get into Crosshair, but so they don't do it right. They don't kill the Padawan that they were chasing. They were just trying to figure out what was going on, and he was like, "Ah, you're gonna kill me!" And anyway, and then they get back and they realize that something weird has happened. There's been a change. The war is now over, and but the Empire is now stepping in, and they don't really know where they're gonna fit in with that, or if they even do fit in with that. But like they're kind of in this place like, well, we're soldiers, so we're just going to do what soldiers do. But then Grant, I don't think he's Grand Moff Tarkin yet. I think he's like Admiral Tarkin or something, but nasty guy. If you know the originals, you know. Um, but Tarkin comes in and he basically puts them through their paces and then almost kills one of them. I think Tech gets shot like by a real. Oh no, Wrecker gets shot by like a real bullet, uh, laser bullet. Pew pew. And then they realize, like, oh, wait, the Empire doesn't care about us. You know what I mean? But oddly enough, Crosshair is all in. Like, he's like, no, this is good soldiers follow orders. This is like the thing that he keeps repeating, and what other is because of the chip in their head. So his kind of works. And, but the rest of them are kind of like, I don't know if I agree with this. Like, this feels weird. Anyway, long story short, most of the Bad Batch ditches Camino and the rest of them, and Crosshair gets left behind. So it's a really tragic separation. Um, but then things just start getting so good, dude. Okay. So the one thing that I really love about the Bad Batch is the found family factor. Okay. The found family factor is something that I love in almost any piece of media. Because like obviously Hunter Wrecker, Tech, and Omega are actually family. They're all technically the same person, but they're family, brothers and sister, right? Um, but you also meet other people along the way that they kind of get included into the family, and it's just really fun. I love seeing their skills being used. I love seeing their personalities come out, and it's really fun to watch the show go on, and the people that they meet and the people that they help along the way, because that's what they do, because they're the good guys. And Echo, I keep forgetting Echo, sorry, he's there too, mainly for the first two seasons. Actually, mainly for the first season. I feel like in the second season he kind of leaves once Rex comes back. That's neither here nor there. The first season is really good because it really solidifies who the characters are and what they care about. And Hunter kind of starts off very like serious business. He's the leader of their group, okay, and he doesn't want Omega to get hurt. But the thing that he starts like At first he's like, no, Omega, you shouldn't be hanging out with us. We're bad news. Okay. We're the bad batch. Okay. You don't want to be part of this. But she's resilient. She's resilient. She's going to be part of their group because she is. She's actually one of the Clone Force 99. And so she's resilient to stay a part of it. And as the series goes on, Hunter and the others start to soften as they realize they genuinely care about her, and she is like the heart and soul of the Bad Batch. Like, they're such tough soldiers. They've just been killing droids for their whole life and risking their necks in really risky operations. But now they kind of want to settle down. They want to hope for a future and they want to have a family. And I love that. Okay. And Omega kind of gives them that hope because she's just a little kid that's like just seeing the world and she just loves it. And it's just precious, okay? And that's a lot of what the first season is. Also, I think in the first season, it might be the second season. Oh, it all blends together to me after a while because I just watched them all the way through. But in the first season, there's a lot of talk about clone rights, right? Because the Empire is coming in and they're coming in hard and they kind of like initially they're like, do we want to keep doing the clones because it's a lot of draining on our resources, or we could just like grab random guys to be our stormtroopers because stormtroopers are now coming into play. Okay. um and so so the Empire kind of cuts off things with Camino, and they're like, you know what, we don't need this, but the only thing is we can't have all these clones hanging around, so we got to get rid of Camino. We got to get rid of Camino so that they can't make any more clones. Also, we have to get rid of all the clones because now they're a threat to us if they don't join with us, right? So half of them, like half of the time, they're like trying to get rid of, they're trying to retire older clones because they're like, this is a waste of our time and resources. But then they're trying to take some of the clones on that are easy to integrate into their military, and then anyone that's a threat's got to go, basically. So the Bad Batch, they gotta go because they're not playing along. But also some of the guys from the 501st, Commander Cody, one of my favorites. I also have an action figure of Commander Cody. um he turns tail. I think there's only one episode with Commander Cody in it, but I freaking loved it. Initially, he went along with them though, not playing, but he did end up changing his mind. But you have Rex and some other guys from the 501st that end up leaving, and they become like their own faction against the Empire, and so therefore a threat to the Empire, right? So there's a lot of talks about clone rights, and there's one advocate. I can't remember what her name is. I'm sorry. She's an ambassador, and she's specifically an advocate for clones because hello, they fought this war for us and now we're just going to ding dong ditch them. Like, I don't think so, you know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of her thing, and it doesn't really go anywhere, unfortunately. Like, I feel like by the time we got to the third season, and I've got a lot to say about the third season, it kind of, that whole thing kind of drops. I feel like a lot of things kind of drop, but it's like nice to know that that was like something that was in the works and that maybe she accomplished something, but we just didn't really see what happened in the show. But I'm also a clone rights activist. Okay, just saying, I'm a clone rights activist. But the first season talks a lot about establishing who the Bad Batch are, establishing what they care about, establishing what they want to accomplish, and also just the things going on around them with the Empire and clone rights and things like that. It's really, really fun. Um, and the main thing, like at the end, was, because Crosshair got separated from the rest of them, and they've never been separated, okay? Like, except for maybe on missions briefly, they've never been separated. So they kind of come to this point where they're like, Crosshair, come with us. Like, we don't have to be separated. And mind you, Crosshair has been trying to kill them this whole time, okay? This whole season, he's been trying to kill them because he wants to get in with the Empire, okay? He wants to have a good position. He wants his work benefits. He sees where this is going, and he figures this is where I'm supposed to be because I'm a soldier and that's all I am, okay? Crosshair, you're so much more than that, my dude, please. But so he's willing to turn on his brothers. However, you have to remember, and you have to, like, the thing about Crosshair is as soon as in the first episode, the rest of the Bad Batch left without him. I know he was threatening them at the time. If you know, he was actually threatening them at the time. But I feel like there was that sense of betrayal from him. Not that he made good choices with that, but he felt betrayed by his brothers. So he's kind of like, well, who are you to tell me that I'm betraying you when you betrayed me first? Because you decided you didn't want to be soldiers anymore. You wanted to go like have a normal life or whatever, and that's not possible for people like us. So like I see where Crosshair's coming from, but it's also like, my brother, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, at the end of this season, they leave Crosshair again, much like the first episode. And it's kind of this moment of like, okay, you really are stuck in your position where you believe the Empire is right and we believe the Empire is wrong. So we're not going to get along. We're not going to overcome this. We got to go our separate ways. And it's like wrenches your heart rate out. You know what I'm saying? Like, devastating. Devastating. And then we get to season 2, my favorite season, also the worst season, all at once. It's not the worst season. It actually is the best season in my personal opinion. It's just I wish the third season had followed up better. But the second season is absolutely the best because now we have the characters' personalities solidified. We know who they are. We love them. They're amazing. We know that we want Crosshair to come back into the Bad Batch. We know we want to see a victory for the boys, okay? And in the second season, they kind of start, I mean, in the first season, they started doing kind of like mercenary work or like just like odd jobs for this one, like kind of sketchy bar owner, okay? And so that kind of continues in this season, and that's mostly what it consists of. Is they're doing these like odd jobs going around space and whatever. And at one point, my favorite episode, it's called Speed, and Tech, my boy, okay, Tech and Wrecker. Can I tell you about Tech and Wrecker real quick? Because they are my absolute favorite characters, my absolute favorites, because they're so funny. They play in this, especially in the second season, they play off of each other so well because Tech is the extremely intelligent one and he makes these like really dry jokes. Like he's being dead serious, but he's hilarious. And then Wrecker doesn't get it. And so he's like, "What do you think? I'm stupid?" You know what I mean? And he's like, "Well, you know, if the shoe fits," kind of. And you know, they're just so fun. They play off like actual brothers like the whole time, and it's so good. Like the older brother just pestering the younger one. You know, oh my gosh, they're amazing. And I think it's because they have the most comical like abilities, maybe, or like maybe the most obvious ones, because Wrecker being the super strong man and then Tech being the super intelligent man, but Wrecker is not very smart, and you know, anyway, I just love them so much, and they do so much good in this season. So much good. There's so many moments where they are like picking on each other and driving each other up a wall, and I'm like, relatable. Anyway, so there's one episode called Speed, and it's basically like pod racing episode. You just need one. It's Star Wars. You need a pod racing episode. It's not pod racing, it's something else. Don't ask me what, but everything in Star Wars is pod racing if it's got a race in it, okay? And so Tech is the only one who can do it because he's got that like extra, he can perceive and know what to do in a split second, right? So he ends up doing it and he wins, and of course he wins. And it's so good. It's just so good, guys. Please watch the Speed episode. Please watch the second season. It's so good. But also in this season, one thing that I love, and Tech, you kind of get the vibe early on, I feel like, even in the first season. And at one point, Tech and Omega have a heart to heart. We love Omega. She is the heart of the family. But like a lot of bad things keep happening to them because they're just not in a good situation. And they're kind of rogues that just go around doing odd jobs, but also, you know, times are tough and the Empire's after them in some respects and things like that. So needless to say, times are tough, and Omega's having a hard time, and her and Tech have like a heart to heart because Tech was being a little bit like, a little extra, a little bit irritable, a little bit irritating more to his team than he usually is. And he gives his heart to heart about how he perceives things so much differently, and he knows that he's so much different. And a lot of people say, and he doesn't outright say this. I don't know if Star Wars would outright say this, but you know, a lot of people say from his description of how he describes himself that he's a little bit autistic. And I kind of love that representation in Star Wars, especially in a character like Tech who has so much heart and has so much love for his team, but he doesn't really know how to show it or you know, emotions are hard. Okay, he gets logic, he gets all of his stuff up here. Emotions are hard for him, and also, he has to always have like his little calm device that he has to like be focused on the whole time. Like, he's not, it's just who he is. And I just love that they had that moment, whether it was supposed to be Star Wars's way of talking about autism in a character, or some other kind of um I don't want to, just some other kind of struggle in some area where, being able to relate is harder. I really love that they had that. I feel like that was really cool representation, especially in a character with so much heart like Tech has. And so that was a sweet moment. And of course, Omega was just totally accepting of what he was trying to tell her and so forth. And anyway, I just love that moment. I can't remember the name of that episode, but just watch the whole second season. It's worth every second, okay? But in the second season, we also come to learn about the main villain here. His name is Hemlock. He's a doctor, scientist. I think they call him Dr. Hemlock, but he's more like a guy who does experimentation on clones, and they are trying. Now, this is kind of where they lost me, and I think it's because I hadn't watched a lot of other Star Wars things prior to this. My brother kind of filled me in on some of it. Is that they were trying to find a clone with a certain, like, oh my gosh, what was it called? Like this, like that they didn't degenerate rapidly, basically, I think. Or they had a certain, I think it was midichlorians. Was that it? Was it midichlorians? I think that's what it was. Midichlorians, the Jedi, the Force thing. So essentially, for whatever reason, clones they were searching for a clone that could basically hold on to their midichlorians and it wouldn't degenerate over time, because clones degenerate really fast. And the reason for that was Project Necromancer, which Hemlock was in charge of. Project Necromancer being that Mr. Palpatine was trying to make a clone of himself and wanted to make sure that his midichlorians wouldn't deteriorate over time. Does that make any sense to anybody? Okay. So I didn't know anything about that so I was kind of confused until my brother filled me in. But anyway, so that's what Hemlock is up to. So he's out here like taking clones and just ruining people's lives just casually. Because clones have lives, okay? But they don't treat them like that because they're the Empire. And the Empire doesn't care about anything except for themselves. If we can just be real. They don't care about anything except for their own science. Um, but you find out in the second season also that they're kidnapping children who are force sensitive or potentially midichlorians and things like that, and hiding them away in this mountain lab, basically in the middle of nowhere, so nobody can find it, right? Because it's evil science. And there's a lot of clones there too. In fact, Crosshair ends up there, but I'll explain that because Crosshair's arc is absolutely amazing in this season, okay? But actually, you know what? Before I go to the place that I'm going to go there first. We're going to go to Crosshair first. So, how does Crosshair end up in Hemlock's lab? Well, I'll tell you. Because he was stationed on an icy planet, and at this point, as he'd been stationed on the icy planet, he'd already run into Commander Cody, and Commander Cody ditched, right? And he was like, "No, I don't want to serve the Empire." And he was like, "That's kind of weird. I wonder why he doesn't want to do that." And Commander Cody kind of gave him a, "Is this really how you want to live your life?" kind of thing. And he's like, "I mean, I'm a soldier. What am I supposed to do?" And so then he's stationed on this icy planet where there's this clone who has been there all this time. All of his brothers have died. His entire clone unit is dead. He has all their helmets. And they are just trying to survive on this icy planet. They don't have any supplies, they got nothing. And then at one point, they have to go to this cave, and bad things happen in the cave, monsters, vicious, and the clone ends up dying. And basically, Crosshair realizes that he really cared about this clone, and he's his brother in this place. They've both been alone here. So he picks him up and he drags him back to base, and he's going, well, I don't know if he was like, I don't think he was I don't know if he was dead at that point or was dying. Maybe he was dying because if I recall right, Crosshair was asking for help from this Imperial general, and who's just a regular dude, not a clone. And the general's like, who cares? I'm not going to help this guy. I'm not going to give you guys much needed supplies. He's a clone. I don't care if he dies. And then Crosshair freaking lost it, my dude. He lost it. He realized at that moment what the Empire really thought about them. They did not care about clones. They didn't care. They didn't want them. Nothing. They were throwaways, right? And then he realized, oh, my life doesn't matter to the Empire. So then so then he goes pew pew to that general, and then he gets in big trouble, and he ends up in Hemlock's base. Okay, that's how that's how Crosshair got there. But he went with style, and you got to respect that. So then I believe at that point, the Bad Batch found out about Crosshair being taken there, and that's why they ended up going there. Because they're like, retrieval time, and finally we'll have our brother back, right? And it would have been, oh, it would have been perfect. But alas, we're not allowed to have nice things. And so they go there, but Saw Gerrera, if you know anything about Star Wars, Saw Gerrera, annoying guy, least favorite character of all time. I do not, this guy literally is the worst. I can't even describe it. Anytime he shows up in any show, he's annoying. I mean, I haven't watched him, like, I've only seen the shows where he's been younger, and he's like this Spitfire rebel that wants to, like, pew pew everybody and take the whole Empire down single handedly, basically. And he's so arrogant and he causes so much problems. And the Bad Batch, mind you, these guys, they work together. They know what they're doing and they know how to do it. But Saw Gerrera got in the way because he's like, we got into the base. Yeah, let's blow it up, basically. And then he ends up blowing up a part of the base that was not safe to blow up. And so the Bad Batch get out of there, right? And it's like a cable car situation. The cable car breaks and Tech ends up falling out of it. And he's on like this rope or something. And Wrecker's literally holding on to the whole cable car that's about to fall to keep Tech from falling, but he can't hold on to it for long because it's gonna break. And Omega's trying to get him up. Everyone's trying to get him up, but then he's like, what do they call it? Plan 9, whatever. He ends up giving them the code word for, hey, I'm gonna I'm gonna sacrifice myself. And so he ends up shooting the wire and falling into the abyss. And it was single-handedly the worst situation. The worst thing. I think I was like this staring at the screen like, are you freaking kidding me? And then like next thing you know, like the Bad Batch are at that bar where they hang out and they are all like, Tech's dead. What do we do now? Kind of a situation, right? And at that moment, Hemlock's Imperial people come charging in because they want Omega, because Omega is special. That's kind of been the thing that's been ongoing for the season, is that Omega is special in some way. They don't really know why, but they know that he wants it and they don't want him to have her. Anyway, so he comes, and Omega also sacrifices herself by allowing herself to be taken by Hemlock's people in order to save Hunter and Wrecker, who probably would have been killed because they were already injured from the situation that Saw Gerrera caused back on that mountain. And also, emotionally, they are unwell because their brother just died. Okay. The heart and soul, bro. The heart and soul. I can't believe that was the choice that they made. But okay, go with me here. So third season. We're in the third season now. And my hopes and dreams were that the third season was going to be like, I believed Tech wasn't dead. I wholeheartedly was like, no body, no crime, Sean. You know what I'm saying? So I wholeheartedly believed that Tech was not dead, especially since they had his goggles and they like threw it on the ground. Hemlock did. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, you have Tech somewhere, and I'm going to find out where, buddy. Because I truly believed that he had somehow found Tech, and perhaps, because he would have had to go looking for him to find his goggles. So I believe that he'd found Tech and he had him in his mountain somewhere. And that was going to be some really big reveal in the third season. Like maybe Tech getting like totally mind altered, like Crosshair, or something like that. But since Crosshair and Omega were both in that mountain, I was like, oh, Tech is definitely there. I know it. So the third season was kind of boring initially. I feel like there was a lot of filler episodes that were unnecessary, and I wish things had been done differently. It also felt very much like this season was rushed, or like they weren't given enough episodes. And I think that's a shame because it was the last one, man. And a lot of things that should have been drawn out and made a bigger deal were not. And I think that's a real shame. So I'll explain what I mean. So basically, um, the whole season is about getting back to Omega, right? And they know Crosshair is there too, so I'm sure that's in the mix as well. But mainly it's about getting Omega out because they know she's in the most danger. And Omega is also trying to find ways to break out. Crosshair is kind of like a zombie at this point, but once he finds out Omega's there, he kind of gets back up and he's like, okay, maybe I'll try to get out of here. I kind of thought I was just going to die here, but oh, sure, why not? So, Hunter and Wrecker are busy running around the galaxy, trying to find people who know where Hemlock would be because this is a hidden planet, hidden situation, hidden. It's hidden. Okay, very well hidden. So they go to like bounty hunters and things like that, eventually finding out where they're located. But somehow, yes, that's right. So Crosshair manages to get out. He manages to get off the planet. Omega does not, however, but Crosshair does. And Crosshair eventually reunites with him. And once Crosshair reunites with him, with Wrecker and Hunter, which is kind of a rough reuniting given their history of violence. But once they reunite, um, Crosshair, there's these guys start coming after them. These guys that are oddly dressed like Crosshair. It's very strange. Same kind of uniform style and stuff like that. And they even use like Crosshair's kind of gun and things like that. And I was like, what is going on here? Like they're assassins, obviously, trained up by Hemlock, but for a specific reason. But why do they look at Crosshair? And then Crosshair reveals that he was part of a special program that was basically like being assassins. Like they were a special unit basically, and he was supposed to head up the unit, but he couldn't. Okay, and now he's run away, so he definitely couldn't, but he couldn't handle it or whatever, didn't want to be part of it. And so like I was like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, so there's like this group of clones that are specifically for like you know something. They're specifically like following Crosshair's look and style and all this. So that's really interesting. I was like, where are we going to go with this? What's going to happen with this? Unfortunately, nothing nothing happens with it. Again, this is where I feel like it was rushed because you find out that there's basically like an anti-bad batch. Like Hemlock was working on that. Okay, like there's one that's really strong, there's one that's really fast, there's one that's like Crosshair, like it's basically the anti-bad batch. Even their uniforms somewhat look alike. Okay, and but the rest of them are only revealed at the last episode or second to last episode. Whereas I think it would have been way more impactful if the anti-bad batch had been introduced even at the beginning of the third season, and like, or you heard about them at like the end of the second season, and then at the beginning of the third season you're seeing this anti-bad batch coming into play. And it would have been even more impactful if Tech was part of the anti-bad batch in some way, shape, or form. But guess what, my friends? Tech really is dead. He was really dead. They were like, he's not coming back, which is absolutely insane. I was literally up until the last episode, fully of the third season, fully believing that Tech was going to come back. And when he didn't, I was just like, what? Are you kidding me? You really did that. I couldn't believe it. So the anti-Bad Batch were really cool, but they were only seen like in one or two episodes, at least the full group, right? And they gave the Bad Batch a run for their money. It would have been so cool to have seen them bumping heads like throughout the series instead of just at the very end. And again, this is why I think that it was rushed because it feels like that was supposed to be far more than it was. And then Project Necromancer just fails and whatever. And, like the end, like Hemlock goes down, so that's a win. But like even their win didn't really feel like enough of a win. It just felt like everything happened so fast. And I don't know if anybody else got that impression, but I sure got that impression. And it made me sad because the Bad Batch was so amazing. And it really, I feel like they could have used just one more season, and they should have brought Tech back. And, because personally for me, I feel like the dynamic of the Bad Batch without Tech just was not the same. Like Wrecker barely said a word, and when there wasn't that comic relief that Tech really brought into it, because Hunter is really serious, Wrecker is really ridiculous, but not always but in a very outward kind of way. Like there's no sarcastic like he's not I love him so much, but he's not smart enough for sarcastic comments and sardonic remarks. Like that's just not who he is, but when Tech bounces that off of Wrecker, it makes Wrecker like 10 million times more funny, okay? And then you have, Crosshair, and Crosshair's depressed, okay? So like it's just we were just missing that heart and soul, okay? And it's just a shame that that's the choice they decided to make. I would have made a different choice, but that's just me. Um, Plus, I want the family together, guys. I want the whole family together. But I did love Crosshair coming back into the team and kind of regaining the trust of his brothers, and also him talking about how losing Tech affected him when he found out that Tech was gone, and how he was like, we'll never be the same. We'll never overcome the loss, the hole that is Tech not being here. And then, Hunter and Wrecker being like, well, we have to, we have to overcome. And yeah, we feel that too. But the heart, we have to keep going for Tech, you know what I mean? And I did love that. If Tech is really, since Tech was dead, at least we had that moment where the brothers kind of came together, like, yeah, nothing is going to be the same, but we still have each other, and we're going to, overcome that in time, So I did love that. That was really powerful. But all in all, I feel like the third season fell extremely flat, especially next to the second season, coming off of the second season, which was like, like iconic. So many great scenes, so many great moments. Obviously, Tech was there, but yeah. So this has gone on for a very long time. I've talked about the Bad Batch for too long, but that is my favorite Star Wars show, and it will always be my favorite Star Wars show. I think for sure. I I rewatch episodes of it all the time just for a good time, especially the fun ones that I really enjoy. The third season, not so much, though I may rewatch the last episode again at some point, but mostly I watch the second season because it's just so fun. But yeah, if you like Star Wars and you've heard about the Bad Batch, but you don't know anything about it, let me encourage you to watch the Bad Batch. It is so much fun. I didn't, when I first saw it, like it being advertised, I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'm sick of Star Wars, so I'm not going to engage with it. And I am so glad that I did, because now I'm a clone advocate, and the Bad Batch is literally my favorite Star Wars characters, aside from like some from the original trilogy. And yeah, I love it. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about the Bad Batch? What did you guys think about the third season? Was there anything that you wanted to happen that didn't happen, or is there things that did it happen all exactly as you hoped it would happen? That's great. I'm so happy for you. Overall, I don't have any complaints. Like I said, I mean, what happened happened. I'm still satisfied with the show, and I still think it's a great show, even if it ended in a way that I didn't expect it to or didn't want it to. But still a great show. No complaints. Dave Filoni did an amazing job, and I mean, he slayed. He slayed it. I still think somehow it was cut short, but that's okay. That's okay. I still can watch the second season and pretend like the third season, goes my way sometimes. I'm just kidding. So yeah, favorite characters in the Bad Batch, favorite moments in the Bad Batch. What do you guys think? What did you like about it? I've told you some of my favorites, and I've talked way too long about this, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you want to hear more about my favorite things, whether they're Star Wars, books, video games, whatever, I hope you'll take the time and have a watch if you want to. You certainly don't have to. Um, but yeah, I think I'll leave it there. The Bad Batch is fantastic. Um, Found Family is fantastic. I really love that they stick up for the oppressed. That's my jam. Yeah, so if you like that kind of thing, I think you would really like that show. And it's very action packed. And also, you get to see like the beginnings of the Empire, which I always think is really interesting, and the transition from a public to Empire, which is like crazy. Anyway, I'm still talking, so let's just end it here. So, God bless you guys. Have a great day, and I hope you tell me your favorite Bad Batch stuff below. Have a good one, guys.